So now the rain won't gather in these little pockets. It should just shed off, right? And now we got a little bit of an airspace so the sun can heat the soil, and then the heat escapes from the soil and gets captured here and just creates a little microclimate. Hey, it's Greg here at MaritimeGardening.com, and I just did a video the other day on a way that I, instead of doing transplants indoors, I make a little kind of mini greenhouse and plant in there. And then I thought I'd do another video on that same topic because there's always questions, and also people have a tendency to, see one thing you're doing and think that's the only approach. So I thought I'd step back a little bit from that concept of making a mini greenhouse, and speaking more generally to just creating microclimates using whatever you have kicking around, and your ingenuity and your creativity and that sort of thing. So I thought I'd show the different examples in my garden right now of what I've got going on, and I'll probably come up with other things. And just to speak to that, the reason I do this, right? Aside from just not having the room for it in my house and knowing it works here, and you may not think it'll work where you are, maybe it won't. I can't really speak to that. But if you're thinking about the temperature, and people say that see that I'm in zone 6A, and they think, well, I'm in zone 5, I can't do it. The fact that I'm in zone 6A does not speak to how quickly spring comes on, how warm April, May, and June are, how sunny April, May, and June are. All the zone speaks to is how cold it can get in the winter. Okay, you have to remember that. All that means is the coldest kind of temperature you can get in the winter, because it speaks to the survivability of various perennials. It doesn't speak to the length of your growing season. It doesn't speak to the amount of heat you get during the growing season. It doesn't speak to the quality of sunlight you get during your growing season, how sunny it is as opposed to being overcast and foggy. In these microclimates I'm creating, they run on sun. To that effect, so today it was around 0, it was below freezing at night, I know, because my goldfish pond is got a layer of ice on top. And it's around 5 Celsius right now. It's a bit nippy, and it's probably going to get up to about 8 or 9 today, I would guess. Now when you're in the sun it feels a little bit better. But I would take it being 2 degrees Celsius, that's 2 degrees above freezing in Celsius for those that use Fahrenheit, and sunny all day, to it being 12 degrees Celsius and it being overcast all day. Because in one of my microclimates, whether it's a dome or a little mini greenhouse or whatever, I'll show you these examples. If it's 2 degrees Celsius and sunny, I know it's going to get warm enough for things to germinate and grow in there, right? It's about sun. The sun inside that environment, the air being captured, and the sun's rays getting through without the wind blowing it away. Even right now, it's fairly windy. It's cold. It's cool right now outside. So anything that isn't enclosed, the ambient air is just going to remove whatever heat the sun is creating by shining on the ground or on the soil where your plant is growing. All that heat that might be held in the ambient air, right? The air right next to that stuff. All that heat is being blown away by the wind, sort of thing. So it can't heat up, and that's why it's cold. But if I was if I was this big and I could crawl into one of my hoop houses right now, it would be nice and warm in there, like a greenhouse, right? That's why greenhouses work. And I get lots of comments from viewers saying, I'm building a greenhouse, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. That's great. But for a fraction of the cost, you can build a mini greenhouse or a hoop house or a row tunnel or something like that. You can put it wherever you want it to be. You can get something growing in the soil it's going to be in. There's every year around February, I mull over ideas for building a greenhouse. And then, the more I think about it for a couple of months every year. And every year I come back to using this system that I have here. I just can't bring myself to lay down the money, to lay down the expense, and to devote the space to it. That's me. Do what works for you. And you know, in terms of growing season, I have a short growing season. Really, the frost-free time is at some point in June. The risk of frost disappears. First week, second week, something like that. And the risk of frosts reemerges around the middle of September. So it's a fairly short growing season in that sense. Although we got a reasonably long growing season for things that can handle frost. And that's why I'm planting all my cole crops, you know, brassicas, crucifers, you know, things like that. And lettuce and peas, things that can handle frost, right? There's a lot of greens that can, things that are like dandelions and, you know, all that sort of category of plant, that family. Those things can handle a cold, freezing night, right? There's literally, I got up at 4 a.m. this morning to use bathroom, and I looked out the bathroom window, and there was a porcupine eating something on my rear lawn. You know, really, a porcupine's an indicator for me that things are starting to grow on my lawn. Not grass, but you know, probably dandelion or maybe clover, but I would guess something like maybe what's it called? A plantain, maybe something like that, right? And when I see a porcupine or a rabbit on my backyard, they're not eating the grass. Usually they're eating some weed, and most likely they're eating the kind of weed I would eat. I eat the young dandelions. I eat the young plantain and things like that sometimes, right? So anyway, let me take you around. Enough of me talking. How about I just take you around the garden and show you these different kind of microclimates that I've created. All right, so here is what we might call the creme de la creme of the microclimate, the low tunnel, hoop house, row tunnel. There's all these different terms for these. I call it a hoop house, or often I just call it a dome, you know. Anyway, this sort of thing I find, you know, in terms of the area it covers, how much it weighs, how much it costs to make one, how many years you get out of it. This plastic holds up for about 5 years. You can see I've put some tape on it and stuff like that to sort of just keep, you know, manage it, because it does get a bit damaged. You know, this is about the best, but these are a bit large, right? But if you want to plant a whole bed, they work. And I mean, the soil under here is thawed, and there's actually, I think, lettuce and kale. I can't remember. There's something growing in there. I'd have to look at my garden plan. And as someone just commented the other day, you should mark the row of everything you plant, and you have a little popsicle stick with the name on it. When you got a 2,500 square foot garden, you don't mess around with stuff like that. I have a garden plan all laid out, and I plant basically what I plan to do in the plan. If I plant something different, I write it down in the file. I use an Excel file. I write it down, so I have a record of what I planted. But really, by the time that whatever I've planted, by the time it's got a couple leaves on it, I know what it is anyway, right? I've been gardening for years. I can just tell by looking. Sometimes I can tell by the first 2 leaves. What are they called? Cotyle leaves, cotyledons. But by the second or third leaves, I can just tell what it is. So that's why I don't need to mark anything. But the soil here is thawed. This soil is, it's frozen. The top inch of this is frozen right now, right? Just from last night. This was thawed yesterday afternoon. I was out here in the afternoon. This was thawed. Now it's frozen. It'll thaw out again today, just to give you a sense of how cold it is right now. Right. Over here, I've got just 2 of these. Basically, I made a rectangle out of wood, just 1 by 3, and stapled some plastic onto it. And there's a bit of an airspace, right? I jammed a rock down here. It's angled this way because it gets the morning sun better than the afternoon sun. Only slight angle anyway. But anyway, it's propped up so that it's about 4 inches off the ground. So there's a bit of an airspace there. Not a perfect fit, but you just work with it, right? And these are great because they're very easy to store. All my garden beds, the soil level is usually about 3 inches below the top, so there's always a bit of a space. So it's perfectly it really accommodates just using something really simple like this to create a mini greenhouse. I'm growing lettuce in here, I think, as I recall, lettuce-like things. And so they're really tough and they can handle the cold. So I've just got this plastic on here to get them germinated and get them up a few inches. Once they're up a few inches, I'll take this off and use it somewhere else. Right? For tough plants like that, you don't need to use the same approach for everything, right? And remember, these microclimates, they just move the season ahead a little bit. So it's April right now, but inside here it's more like May, right? This is a neat little rig. This is the lid off of one of my cold frames. I dismantled my cold frames. I just gave up on the whole cold frame idea and went with the more of the sort of portable, mobile, temporary greenhouse, temporary microclimate sort of type idea. So this is the lid, and it's got these two sort of triangle-shaped things, and it's just one piece. It's all one piece. It's light enough for me to pick up. This might weigh 25 pounds, maybe 30 at the most. So that's like I can manage that. I haven't planted anything here yet. I just did this yesterday. I got to figure out something. But for a bed like this, you can have basically there's a bit of an air space here, but you can just move the mulch up to jam that space up, right? But there's still enough cracks that if it gets hot in here, the air can bleed off. I had a viewer ask me about, how do you keep it from getting too hot? I got to say, where I live, I'm really not worried about things getting too hot this time of year. But really, all you got to do is, there's always these space gaps that I fill with mulch, right? So if it's going to be a hot day, I just make it, I can get my hand in there, right? So I just make a hole. Maybe at the back, I take a little rock like this and just prop it up a little bit, right? Just to create an airspace. That's enough for where I am. Remember, I don't have these on all summer long, right? It's April right now. For most things, I just have them on until the plants are large enough to move, or the plants are so large they hit the top, and then I get rid of them. And I really don't want anything covered in my garden. I want the rain coming down on stuff. So, I just have these here to make up for the fact that it's just it's not warm enough to get good germination right now outdoors. But in an environment like this, you can get the soil warm enough for things to germinate. Later in the year, for things like tomatoes, squash, and stuff like that, I can start them a month early using this approach. But much further along in the year, right? Maybe early May sort of thing. Here's a little more substantial sort of setup. This was an entire top tier one of my cold frames, right? So I just took that whole section off. I only had 3 cold frames, and I made 3 big beds out of them. I've gotten so much more out of the cold frame material since I dismantled them and reused them in this way. Anyway, I got this slightly raised bed here, south facing, and I thought, I haven't planted anything here yet, but it's such a great spot, south facing, the base of a slope, that it just makes sense to have, to turn this part of it right next to it. I've got parsnips growing and some salsify over there. But for right here, I thought maybe this would be a good place to start my eggplant or peppers or something like that. Maybe peppers. Maybe this is a good place for peppers. Anyway, I haven't decided all that yet. Still some decisions to make. I make a garden plan every winter, but I change things on the fly based on what makes sense, right? It's still too early to plant peppers right now. Just people, I'm not sowing peppers right now. This is the simplest sort of setup, right? A little microclimate. Now, a bit of a design flaw here. I should actually fix it while I'm on camera here, but so I just put the plastic on top. This is a salsify garden. Salsify is kind of like a parsnip, I guess. Doesn't taste like that though. People say they taste like oysters, but they don't. To me, anyway. As a person who enjoys oysters, I can say they don't taste like oysters at all. Anyway. Oh, ice. Right. The trick to having a good, effective microclimate is to trap a little bit of, at least in my opinion, in my experience, trap a bit of an airspace, right? So I got some little sticks like this. So you just lay them across like this. All right? They're not going to block too much sun. I wouldn't worry about that. All right, that'll keep the plastic from sagging. Like that. All right, now we can put it back on. And I mean, yeah, I have to mess around with the plastic and stuff a bit, but you know, it's really not too much work. If you think this is too much work, you really shouldn't bother gardening. Because if this is too much work, I really don't know. I really don't think you'll ever be happy as a gardener, because it doesn't get much easier than this, in my opinion. I'm putting the rocks on just to keep it all from blowing away, right? Didn't quite reach, so we'll put this piece here. You know, some people might say that you know, the plastic filters out some of the sunlight, and that's true. That's completely true. But you got to remember that the intensity of the sun outdoors, the true sun, like the actual sun shining on things, it's just so much more intense than the indoor sun, right? The sun you get when you're indoors. Here, like that. So now the rain won't gather in these little pockets. It should just shed off, right? And now we got a little bit of an air space, so the sun can heat the soil, and then the heat escapes from the soil and gets captured here and just creates a little microclimate. Another application of the plastic here, just got the garden bed here that I got peas down the middle here. They've at least I've done a couple little checks and the peas have germinated. I didn't prop this up, but this is very temporary. I'll only have this up for a few more days. Oh, and there's another thing over here I should show you. This little rig here, invaluable little tool to have in a garden. Just a piece of plastic attached to two 1x3s, right? If you plant a row of something, you can just flop it over, right? And if you want, you can use a rock or two to, you know, to prop it up. There's lots you can do to bow it up a little bit. But the great thing about this is that you can just fold it up like that and put it away. When the garden season is over, they cost almost nothing to make, take up no room, and I start a lot of things under these. I mean, they do, if it rains, they get pulled in like this, but you can just tighten it a little bit, and you get a bit of an airspace there. It does have an effect. It has a, I mean, I've started like squash, and they've survived frosts under these, right? So a squash cannot survive a frost. So anyway, great little sort of temporary microclimate. So I mean, I'm just bringing all these ideas to your attention so you can understand there's not just one way to do it. Here's one of the micro, what do I call this? Tiny greenhouse. Right, I've got, what did I plant here? Swiss chard. Swiss chard. I got Swiss chard here. I actually planted too much. I didn't, you know, sort of measure it out properly. I planted too much. So I just got a bit more planted here. I have one of these handy dandy things. These are just great, right? So I just stuck it here. There's a bit of an airspace there. Put a couple rocks to hold it down, keep it from blowing away. Right? One on the other side there too. And that should be fine. You know, got to remember the Swiss chard is pretty tough. I mean, it can't handle a super hard freeze, but covered like this, you know, 99% of the time, you'd have to have an incredibly cold freeze for the plant not to handle it. But yeah, the Swiss chard can handle, you know, 0, -2, -3, -4, that sort of thing. And you know, however much the difference between this microclimate and the bare soil this time of year is that every night the bare soil freezes a little bit and then it thaws out during the day, whereas the soil is not freezing at night. So the seed's getting cold, but it's not freezing, and the seed can handle being cold. These kinds of seed, right? Cole crops, lettuce, things of that nature. I guess I should also mention, you know, this little mini greenhouse is made with glass. This is a screen window somebody threw out in their trash. And years ago, when I started using this approach, I basically hoarded a whole bunch of glass and windows. And one by one they broke. So You know, if you're the kind of person that maybe if for your gardening it's not super windy, or if you're just an exceptionally careful person, or if you don't have young kids, maybe glass is a good way to go. But you know, at some point this glass will probably break. And another reason to use plastic, like I got one over here, it's just a wooden box like this with plastic over the top, is that it doesn't weigh nearly as much. And just in case you missed that video that I did on sowing, what did I plant here? Collards. I sowed collard greens here. This is a box just like the one I just showed, but it's got plastic, and I've got some bamboo sticks here just sort of bent to create a sort of dome on the top, because unlike, you know, with the glass the water doesn't gather, but with the plastic, if you don't bow it up a little bit with something, it'll form a bowl. The plastic will stretch and it'll form a bowl, and it'll fill with water, and the light won't get through properly, and also the you know, it just creates a better microclimate when it's got a dome like that. And just in case you haven't seen this little beauty, so this was a sort of dome house or row house or hoop house that I made using 2x3 and 1x3. The idea I had in my mind is, you know, what if someone just had a small car? I have a small car now. I used to have a pickup truck, but I got rid of that to save gas. And so I've got a small car, and so like I can put 2 by, you know, I can put 8-footers, 10-footers, and even 12-footers in the back of my car, believe it or not. They're all the way up into the front seat sort of thing, but I can do it. So this is just made by 1x3 by 8 feet and 2x3 by 8 feet. Sort of simple structure like this. This weighs more than the wire remesh built hoop houses, but it's higher. It's consistently higher, so it's got that advantage. I got a video on how I made this thing. Anyway, I planted beets here yesterday, and you know, beets need warm soil to germinate. If you read the pack, it says, you know, 60 to 70 Fahrenheit, which is, you know, around, let's say, room temperature, 20 Celsius, give or take, right? I'd say it's probably like 15 Celsius is the minimum they need to germinate properly. So it's certainly not 15 C out right now, but it's probably at least 15 C in here right now, right? So beans can handle a cold night. A really hard frost will damage the foliage, but the plant usually survives. I've experienced that, and sometimes there's been years we've had hard frosts in like first week of June sort of thing. Yeah, if you want to, you know, if you're trying to plant beets and you're not having the best results, it may just be that the beets didn't have, I mean, it could be your soil and it could be this, that, and the other thing, but it may just be that there wasn't the right amount of heat when you were planting them, or there was too much heat when you were planting them. So to solve that, you give them the right amount of heat in April, right? And then you can take the dome off, let's say, sometime in May, right? And then they won't be getting too much heat, because it's almost like you're extending that May sort of, you know, that 20 Celsius temperature, right? Anyway, just a couple random thoughts on that, on beets, but anyway. Another kind of microclimate, sort of a hoop house kind of idea made from 1x3s and 6mm poly and staples and nails and screws and stuff. Anyway, just a few ideas and different kinds of microclimates that you can have in the garden. A couple things I didn't show you that I use later on is the idea of a cloche, which is like an inverted bell, clear plastic or clear glass. Right? You could use anything. You could use an upside down glass bowl. You can use an upside down clear plastic container. Right? Some people use like Coke bottles. They sort of cut the top off and do that. There's lots of different things you can do. I would say that the larger the area of the thing you're using, the more of a microclimate you're creating, right? So the larger it is, the more area that's being heated by the sun, and the more air that's holding that heat in proximity to the soil. So, you know, I mean, that's why greenhouses work, full-size greenhouses work so well, because it's a lot of area, right? Capturing all that heat. But as I mentioned over the course of the video, the cost is somewhat prohibitive, and you know, there's time and expense to putting it together, and it's kind of stuck where it is, right? Whereas these things you can just plop them wherever you're growing stuff, so there's an advantage to that. Of course, you got to find a place to store all these things. I'm lucky I've got a good sized piece of land. I can just sort of fire all this stuff in the woods. Right? So I mean, you have to use an approach that works for your space. I think, you know, for the home gardener in a suburban setting where they don't have a lot of space, maybe one of these domes might be appropriate. There's other ways to make domes where the whole thing can come apart. I think Patrick Dolan on One Yard Revolution does that. I find it's just so windy here. I got to have something that's really stapled together and really sturdy. Otherwise, you know, it'll just blow apart in place. We had a huge windstorm just a few days ago, and I didn't have all these domes. I have them tied down. Everything's either weighted down with rocks or tied down. And one of the domes wasn't tied down, and it must have been blowing all around this garden because it was bent and smashed to smithereens. The welds in the wire remesh were pulled apart, and you know, the logs, so it's got 2 long pieces this way and then 3 pieces that go this way, and they're screwed in with, like, I don't know, 3-inch screws, ripped right out, and pieces in different parts of the garden too, so that thing probably flying around here. Right? Just give you a sense of the wind. And it was a heavy one. That one probably weighs, oh geez, maybe 40 pounds or more. That was nothing. That weight's nothing with the kind of wind we got here. Anyway, so yeah, you know, if you have a smaller property and not a lot of storage space, you want to think about modular designs that can be dismantled and taken apart. I mean, really, the plastic square that I've got, you know, that sort of thing, I could see having a plastic square like that and then just having a box that fits together and comes apart, and you can put the square on top, right? Or the mini greenhouses that I showed you, it might be the ideal thing for the home gardener, and there's ways that could come apart too. You could build, if you're clever, you know, the box could go together with dovetails, and if you enjoy that sort of carpentry, you could have the thing just fit together like Lego and come apart. I could see lots of ways that could be done. I don't have to do it that way here, so I mean, it takes extra time to do that sort of carpentry, but it's certainly a good winter project. Anyway, I think I've prattled on enough. So I hope that gave you some ideas and you know, some food for thought on direct seeding and getting things to start in your garden, and not having to buy the transplant in the grocery store and not having to bother doing it in your house. There's a lot of reasons to direct seed, not the least of which just, I mean, your plants get their energy from the sun, and there is no light like the sun. That's why that's the one that gives you the sunburn. So I hope you found that interesting. If you did, please like, share, subscribe. Check out my podcast, maritimegardening.com, if you want to hear nice long conversations between myself and other gardeners, or sometimes it's just me. And don't forget to click the bell if you want to get notification when I make new videos. And until next time, get out there, get at it, have fun in your garden. Thanks for watching. Hey, it's Greg Otten here with maritimegardening.com, and I thought today I'd show you how I start some of my, I guess you could call them transplants, in late winter. It's the middle of February, and it was warm and sunny this weekend, and this particular cold frame of mine has completely thawed out. All the frost is out of there, and the soil is completely soft, and really happy about that now. I think part of the reason for that is that what I did in the fall is that I filled it full of basically fresh horse manure, and I put cardboard over it to sort of almost like a mulch, right? Like, you know, if cardboard isn't mulch, I don't know what it is. It comes from trees. It's made from wood. Not really cardboard. I guess it's those brown big paper bags that they put leaves on the side of the road with. So when I use those, you know, I take them from the end of their street, or the end of their driveway, on the street, and I use the leaves, and then I fold up the bags and just put them away and use them for later. So here I am. I didn't screen for my compost bins. I didn't screen out any soil for planting last fall. I should have done that, didn't get around to it. So I'm just screening. This is an old baby gate that I found on the side of the road. So I'm just it's got just the right size holes. They're about 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch circles, and it seems to do a pretty good job. So I'm just working my way across the bed and getting enough of this here. I'm just screening it so the unbroken down bits of manure and other stuff I'm just throwing back in, and I'm not throwing it back in where I'm taking it out, but basically I'm getting enough soil here to put a nice, I don't know, inch deep layer across the top of the entire bed. So yes, I'm disturbing the soil and it's not ideal, but it's this or go and buy some bags of that black stuff at the store, and I'd rather just use what I've got. And I know this stuff's nutrient rich because it's composted horse manure. It's been sitting there in that cold frame composting since late October, so it's ready to go. So there's all the rough stuff. That stuff goes underneath. It holds moisture well. It's full of nutrients. It's an ideal planting medium. Horse manure is kind of unique in that sense. It's not too strong. It's relatively weak in terms of all the constituents that make up, you know, the nitrogen, potassium, all that stuff. It's relatively weak, but when I say weak, I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean it's perfect. It's ready to be planted in. Couldn't be better. A lot of people give it a bad rap, a bum rap, so to speak, but it gets a bad rap. If you can get it from a good source where you know that the horses have been fed good stuff and they're not full of medicines and stuff like that. Here I'm just patting it. I'm just evening it out with my hand and patting it down so it's relatively consistent. I'm going to be direct seeding in this, right? That's what this video is about, direct seeding in a cold frame in late winter. So last year I direct seeded a good number of greens this way 1st of March, and this year I decided to do it a bit earlier. So I got another bed where I direct seeded onions late fall, and they're growing now. And this bed here I'm planting some, I think, kale. I plant 3 things in it, but I think you only see me planting the kale because my battery died. Planted kale, lettuce, and corn mosh. It's like another green, a salad green. All lettuce and the mosh or salad green. The kale, I like to cook those. And I'm planting just my own kale seeds. It's like a wild kale, I guess, or a white Russian kale. I started my kale in cold frames like this last March, and I was harvesting them right up until New Year's Day. I moved them out of the cold frame and plant heat-loving plants in there later in the spring. But this just gets everything started. I moved them out of there in late April into beds, you know, in the other parts of my garden where they're just exposed. So there I'm just smoothing out the layer of the nice loose soft stuff. So now this is all ready for planting, but what does everybody say about horse manure? It's full of weeds, and that's a problem. So here's the solution to that. Again, you get one of these, you can use cardboard for this, you can use newspaper, you can use whatever you've got, but this is the heavy craft paper that those leaf bags are made of. People just throw it away. When they're throwing away the leaves, you can use the leaves as a mulch in your garden. You can use the leaves in your compost. You can compost that with other things like seaweed, like horse manure, like whatever you can get. And then you can use the bags as a weed killer, worm food, and a kind of mulch, right? I mean, this is basically, if you think about it, it's wood chips, right? Just highly refined. And it breaks down fairly quickly, but it lasts long enough. So, I mean, with some decent heat in there, that paper will start to disappear after a couple months. It'll just start to break down, and the worms will eat it, and different things in the microorganisms will start to break it down. By the time I want to pull the transplants out of this cold frame, I doubt this paper will be an issue. But for now, it's perfect for preventing the grass seed that's in that horse manure from amounting to anything. The grass seed will germinate because it's nice and warm in there. I've been checking the temperature regular in these cold frames, and on sunny days, even when it's like -10, it can be 20 degrees Celsius in there sometimes. So the grass seed's going to germinate in conditions like that, and it'll come up, it'll hit that paper, and young grass isn't that tough, right? So it's not like bamboo, right? It's not very strong, so it'll hit the paper, it won't be able to get through the weave of the paper, and it'll just die and become another source of fertilizer, right? And the organisms will eat that as well. So it's a perfect system for taking advantage of the good qualities of the horse manure while at the same time avoiding bad qualities. The other thing that this paper does is it helps retain moisture in the soil. So I don't have to be out here watering it every day. You know, when you're growing transplants in your house, you're out there squirting water on them and mucking around, and I find it a real pain. Last year I didn't do any transplants in my house, and this year I'm not going to do any transplants in my house. So here's the next stage. I'm putting some water on here, and I'm doing that to almost like paper mache, to help compact or pat down or just soften up the paper, right? Just so I can get the paper pushed down so it's not moving around, so I can get it to conform to the contours of the soil beneath it and stick in place. I don't want it moving around, right? Once I make I'm going to make holes in this to plant my seeds, and once I make a hole, I don't want the hole in the paper, I want the paper to move, because then the paper will be over the seeds I plant, which will defeat the whole purpose. Right? I'm going to make little holes where I'm going to plant my seeds, and my seeds are going to come out through those holes, and all the other area is going to be covered in paper, and the weed seeds are not going to come up through this. And it's fairly effective. It works pretty well. So there's different ways you can do it. I got another bed where I cut like strips in the paper, and I have rows. But here I'm using this Easy Digger, a homey gardening tool, which by the way you can get at Vessi Seeds. If you didn't watch one of my recent videos, I've got a coupon code for Vessi Seeds, www.vessiseeds.com. You can go and use the coupon code GAVS18. I've got a video, I'll put it at the end of this video, where you can explain the details of that coupon code. It's basically free shipping on whatever you order. Anyway, watch the video if you want the exact details. I don't want to get into that here. So these are my own seeds that I saved a couple years ago. Last year my kale didn't go to seed, it just died. Hoping that the kale I left in the ground this year will go to seed. But see, I'm just putting, I don't know, 2 or 3 seeds. The thing about saving your own kale seeds is you get about 5 million kale seeds. But anyway, just put 2 or 3, just putting like a pinch of seeds in each hole. Once the seedlings start to grow, I'll select out for the strongest ones. Basically, just put a little bit of clump of dirt over the hole, right? Enough to have something like 1/8 of an inch of cover, so you pat it down a little bit so you have good contact. That's all you got to do, right? That's it. And you'll find if you do it this way, you'll notice this looks like a raised bed, but it isn't raised. The soil in this bed is at the same height as the ground surrounding the cold frame, and so it doesn't really dry out, right? Because it's not above the ground, right? When there's a good rain, right, the water table, gets it becomes there's water in the water table, and it just seems to find its way into these cold frames. It just goes underneath and along the soil that's beneath this. Now you go down about, I don't know, 8 inches beneath this cold frame, and it's relatively hard clay stuff. So anyway, that's the idea. A few seeds, put some soil on top, pat her down, and continue on. That's all you got to do. I think my battery dies about there. Yeah, so my battery just died for that camera. So I came out. That was a couple days ago. I came out today just to finish the video. So I've planted the whole garden here. It's kind of hard to tell because I put a little bit more water on it when I was all done, and it moved some of the soil around. But I don't know. About every 3 inches, there's a hole. It's about 1 inch in diameter, and in each of those holes, there's a few seeds with a little bit of soil on top. Right. So I'm just trying to point some of those spots out here in a very clumsy way, holding the camera in my hand, but there's a spot there, and there's no point in making this a nice, clean, perfect operation, right? You want this paper to be as dark as it can possibly be so it'll attract heat, right? So if you had some way of, I thought of boiling some water over a fire with some bark and stuff and sort of painting the cardboard to make it dark, but I couldn't be bothered. I
put dirt everywhere and made it kind of dirty. It'll achieve the goal. Anyway, you can see there's little spots every so often. So it's almost like making, you know, those little seed trays that you would plant seeds in. You're kind of doing an inverted an inverted version of that, the opposite of that. And when you want to move these to use as transplants, you just scoop them out of the ground. That's why you want each one maybe about 4 inches from the other one, so you can get underneath it and get the plant out without messing it up too bad, messing up the adjacent plants. But also I find that they don't get root bound this way, right? The roots aren't, they can't, the roots are unbound. Since I had the camera in hand, I thought I'd show this other cold frame had no roof on it until, I don't know, about two weeks ago, give or take. So it's still got a bit of, that's ice, that's the top layer of soil. It's got a bit of ice on it because it froze, but it's not too bad. It's almost thawed out. I think we can get it's really foggy and overcast this week, most of this week. But if we can get a couple sunny days, I think this will thaw out completely. I can plant something in here as well. So I'm just planting greens in here this time of year, and then I'll move them out at some point in April, and then plant heat-loving plants in here like peppers, tomatoes, and stuff like that. And yeah, it's just showing you how much that's ice, right? It's like an ice layer. But beneath the ice, that is soft. And that's not the case in other parts in my garden. In the other parts of the garden, I get like an ice layer that's thick. You can't get a shovel through it. I've got some various things going on with hoop houses and stuff trying to thaw it out. I should have had my hoop houses deployed in the garden last fall to overwinter like that, but I just didn't do that. That was another mistake. Here's where I planted my onions, for those that didn't see the video before. Slightly different approach here. Instead of making little holes, and I'm sorry the camera work here is so crappy, but anyway, I just thought I'd get the content out there for those that are interested, because it's time of year to do this sort of thing if you have a cold frame already set up. So I'm just showing some of those little, you can see at the tip of my finger there, little bits looks like grass. Pretty sure those are onions. So yeah, there's one, where's that one there? Little green sprig. When onions come in, they're almost like nothing. They're imperceptibly small. They're so small. But anyway, they have grown. I'm not sure if that's an onion or not. That might be some other weed. I'm not quite sure. There seems to be more of those really fine hair-like things than anything else. So I'm pretty sure those are onions. We'll see in the next, month. We'll see. Nothing ventured, nothing gained is my attitude on that. Anyway, you can see the different approach here, where you got, a 1-inch wide row, and then a 8-inch wide piece of paper, and then another 1-inch wide row, and then another piece of paper. There's no point planting too close to either side. The sides are east-west. The long sides are north-south, with the higher side at the back on the north side. So it's facing. I'm standing on the south side of it while I'm filming this. Anyway, so that's the state of things right now. Another foggy day in Nova Scotia. There's so much fog today, you can literally see wisps of fog floating in front of your eyes. Almost like, it's kind of magical, and you never know what's going to step out of the forest on a day like this. It's very quiet and peaceful, and expect a deer or something to come out of there any minute, or some other thing, some rabbit trying to eat stuff in my garden. There's the hoop houses I got trying to thaw stuff out. Anyway, I hope you found that interesting. Hope that gave you some ideas. If you enjoyed this content, please share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And until next time, get out there, get at it, and have fun in your garden. Thanks for watching.
Hello, it's Greg Ott here with maritimegardening.com. Today I'm going to talk about an experience I'm sure many people that garden in the north have had, where you plant a heat-loving plant like beans or squash. You direct seed it into the ground, and you wait a week and it doesn't grow. You wait another week and it doesn't grow. And you wait another week and you realize the seed rotted in the ground because you planted it a little bit too early. Might have been 1 day too early, or might have been a week too early. And the seed got too cold and it died and rotted in the ground. and now you got to plant it again, and it sets things back that much further, and your growing season is short, and things are getting dicey, and you don't even know if you're going to get much back from the plant. And that's really stressful. So first thing is to say that you should learn indicators for your area that tell you when it's safe to do that. I have noticed that when the petals start falling off a tulip plant, and I have tulips in this garden, in my garden, as indicators. I also just like them, and it's the only place I can grow them on my property where the deer don't eat them. But anyway, once the petals start falling off the flowers, it's safe. You could use a farmer's almanac, you can, graph things out and chart things, but I honestly find that a system of perennials growing on your property and timing the stage of development of that perennial to seed planting times is pretty reliable. So I have found that when the petals are falling off your tulips, it's safe to plant those things out. But let's say it's a really warm weekend and the tulips are still fine and you want to chance it, right? Or you just want to get a head start on things. What do you do when that's the case? Or what if it's still a bit iffy and you're just worried about that anxiety, right? You'd like to put them in the ground and in 5 or 7 days see them come up. How do you make that a bit more of a certainty? Well, I'm going to walk you around my garden and show you some tricks I use to take the uncertainty out and to make things a little bit more reliable and predictable. And you can even use these techniques to advance your harvest times and advance your maturity dates a little bit. So stay tuned, have a watch. Okay, well, we'll begin at the beginning here. This is a, I guess you call it a raised hugelkultur bed type thing. So all I've done here you can see I put down some mulch and then I cleared these spots, right? And I put, I think, 2 or 3 seeds in each one, and then I put this plastic over top, right? So I got 4 spots right here, there, there, and there, where I'm growing squash. I find I can usually get away with, this is outside my garden enclosure, and I can usually get away with growing squash here. For some reason the deer seem to leave them alone. I don't know if that's the case everywhere, but at least for me I get lucky with that. Over here I did the same thing. There's 4 spots. Some of the grass is coming over it, but basically I made a hole in the grass, made a little circle in the grass where I got down to bare soil. How well you can see that. Right. So I got 4 spots. We're down to bare soil, over there and over there. That's close to bare soil. Right, the mulch here is about 2 or 3 inches thick. So you just push that aside, stick your seed in the ground, put a bit of soil on there, and then down she goes, right? And then so you got a little microclimate there, and that should accelerate, aid, and make germination a little bit more reliable. And as the plant grows, I'll put logs and stuff like that to just raise up this thing. Try to keep that on there as long as possible to accelerate the growth rate, right? And because it's not airtight, right, it's basically being held up by sticks and grass. So there's plenty of ways for hot air to get out. But it's relatively well insulated, so at night the cold air doesn't get in, or it really slows it down and doesn't let it in to such an extent that it jeopardizes the seeds. Over here I've got 2 hoop houses. This is like end of May right now. And I probably could have done this a week ago, but you know what, it's been quite cold at night. But I probably could have got away with a week ago, maybe even 2. Just had other things I had to do, didn't get around to it. Anyway, I planted pickling cucumber here and zucchini over there. And I'll just pop this off and show you quickly. Do one of them anyway. Not the greatest, most efficient mechanism for Anyway, you can see here, there's same approach. I got a good heavy mulch down, about 3 inches deep of hay. That's just what I've got. Use whatever you can get, hay, straw, seaweed, whatever. And you make a hole, get down to the soil, and put your seeds about 1 inch deep, give or take, depending on what they require. I think these are 1/2 inch planting depth. And I got each one about, I don't know, 18 inches apart. Now in each of these holes, oh jeez, getting eaten alive out here. Yeah, so I planted about 2 seeds to each hole. That way, if one doesn't germinate, they should germinate well. These are top quality Vessi seeds. So even if both of them germinate, you can pick the bigger, stronger, better of the two, right? And make the most of that. And resist the urge to leave them both there. You gotta pick a winner. You gotta pick a loser. That's just the way it is. Anyway, these have to be, you know, until they really get going and I can get a mulch down, you have to check them almost every day or every other day to make sure they stay moist. I'll probably come out tomorrow morning and hit this with some water. I like to water in the morning as opposed to the evening. Watering in the evening seems to bring the slugs around. But that's the general idea. The other one over there is the exact same thing. It's just a different thing planted, but same thing. And that's about as tight as you can pack them in a 4x10 bed, right? Now these cucumbers, I'll make 2 trellises, right? Last year I planted them 3 deep, like 1, 2, 3, and it was, you know, it was a bit too busy. I think 2 is enough. I think you know, fewer strong plants is better than a lot of pretty strong plants, right? Fewer. If you have very few really good plants, I think you overall get more out of that anyway, because the plants are happy and strong. Here's another technique I've used. I've planted an eggplant here under this box. I think I did a video in the winter where I showed how I make this. Just look back over my videos, you can see this. And I've got eggplant here, Just pop this off and show you how I got it in here. Can I do this with one hand? Let's lift it up like that. So all I got here, whoops, all I got here is, I've only planted 2 rows. There's 1 row here, and there's 1 row here. This is actually, if you look underneath, it's paper, right? I got a piece of paper about 6 inches wide, and then a space of soil about 2 inches wide. And you can see here, right? Another piece of paper about 6 inches wide. And I didn't plant anything down here. I just have 2 rows. Right, because those are the rows getting good sun. Don't get greedy. I've tried it the other way, and if you, let me just pop this down and explain something else to you. So there's a row across here, there's a row across there. You really can't see it, but from experience I've noticed it's really not a good idea to plant really close to the back wall. It just gets too hot and too dry. Right, the thing's angled south where I'm standing, and the sun bounces off the wood and hits the ground and just makes it too hot for actual germination. So the line you plant for germination should be about 5 inches in front of the back, right? And then you go 6 inches across and make another line, and then this whole area here, there's nothing planted there at all the way across. There's nothing planted there at all because it doesn't get ideal sun, and things just don't seem to grow well that are close to this, because this is the north end, right? Tiny little microclimate. Imagine this being like the north side of a mountain, right? All dark, but once you get over here, there's good sun. So that's the trick with that. Anyway, we'll see how that works. I tried eggplant last year using a technique like this. I planted them a bit earlier. It took them forever to germinate, so I decided to wait till last week of May to plant them this year, direct seed. And we'll see what happens. It's supposed to be a fast maturing variety. I think it matures in 65 days. Vessi seed variety. So we'll see what happens. If this technique can work, or if their only way to do it is with transplants that are started indoors in April. One last thing here, I guess a semi-fail. So these are all tomatoes that were planted around the first week of May, and this whole bed was planted out, But as I alluded to in that last eggplant example, almost all the seeds that I planted along this wall, which were the, what is this? Red Alert tomato. None of them came in. I don't think it's got anything to do with the variety of the provider. I just think it's too consistently hot and dry against this wall to really make it happen. I only got 2 of them. It's supposed to be a really fast growing tomato. Now this row, I mean, I had a tomato planted every 6 inches. These seeds were not inexpensive, let's put it that way. But this row and this row are varieties that are supposed to be blight resistant, and there is a bit of blight in this particular garden, so I wanted to see how they would do. Anyway, I think I planted a dozen of each. That's all that comes in a pack, and I lost about half of them. They germinated, but they just died, and I think it's because there was one night which was really cold. We had a hard freeze, and even though it's a cold frame, the soil, when I came out in the morning, this soil rose because the moisture in it had frozen and rose. Just, it was heaved by frost. So I think a lot of them bit the biscuit, that one. So for this variety here, this is Plum Regal. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I got 5 of them. And this one here, Mountain Merit, again another blight resistant variety. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I mean, I still got some. It's not a complete failure, but I definitely probably started about a week early. You never know with these things. I pushed it a bit early. I mean, this was May 1st, and we had a fairly cold May this year. So just rolled the dice a little too hard. So when that happens, you replant. I'm not replanting here because I've never grown these varieties before, and I don't want to confuse these are sort of very high-end seeds, and I don't want to confuse them with other varieties that I have in my garden, because I want to see how they perform in comparison. So I just, despite the fact that I could get more things going in here, maybe I'll try a different variety, if something like not even a tomato, something that's not tomato. But I want to see how they do. Maybe I could put some peppers in here. Anyway, I want to see how they do. They're coming along okay, right? Given that they were planted less than a month ago, direct seeded outdoors, not bad. And I think you find when you do it this way, they're very easy to harden off. And the ones that do take and the ones that do come along are extraordinarily vigorous as the growing season progresses. I certainly like using this technique for starting, as opposed to messing around with fluorescent lights and stuff like that in my house. I don't have any of that anymore. And just to show that I'm not all high and mighty, that I'm not above buying transplants, underneath this cold frame that I made out of wood, I have a video on how I made this particular one. If you can't get wire mesh and you want something you can put in your car that's, you can pick this stuff in a subcompact car and bring it home. Under this cold frame, I've got some different varieties of tomatoes growing as well. Let's just pop this off and have a look here. Look, see. Boy, the flies are bad. Just 2 rows, right? You can see the tomatoes. I find it's always better to, like, when they're small like this, you can think you can plant a whole bunch. But actually, if you space them out and let them have lots of room, let the roots have lots of room, you'll notice a pretty big difference in your yield and the overall health of the plants. Lots of air, lots of wind getting at the plant. It'll just be less prone to problems. These are 2 different varieties. One's Early Girl, and the other one is some sort of plum tomato. It's just transplants that I bought at a garden center. Just stuck them in the ground. Now, it would be a bit early to put things like this out, but because it's under this frame, these would be fine, right? They'll be totally happy. And they should grow at an accelerated rate. Once they spend a week getting used to the soil here, they should take off. And this is the garden I built last year. Oh, and one last thing. Just in case you don't have a hoop house and you don't want to build some giant thing, you don't have any old windows or anything like that, it's another little trick you can do. This is just a piece of plastic stretched between 2 sticks, right? And you can see there's the hole where I got the cucumber planted. There's another hole where cucumber planted. This thing's just not long enough to cover this area. So you can reuse these multiple years, and they just roll up, right? Easy to pack away, right? Nice and small. So if you're on a small scale, and I mean, I'm using 6mm poly, but you could do this with a garbage bag. Just spread that over. Right, once the plants grow high, you can actually put a couple sticks to hold this up like a little tent. Right, you just drive a couple sticks in and to sort of hold it up like a ridge. But when they're little, like when they're not growing yet, and it's still cold at night, you want this flat to keep out the cold air. Right, you just put those down, and that'll do the same thing. Keep nice and warm. So on these beds here, I've got these things as well. Right, there's one there. And I planted them. This is south this way. And there's a space between these gardens and my fenced-in garden enclosure where there's weeds. And what I was thinking, I got squash like a pumpkin, is that I trained the vines this way to grow over top of all these weeds. So I don't need to walk down this way really. I need to be able to access these beds, and I can do it from the rows between them. Right, I don't need to access the ends. So that way I can plant something in the end and have it go that way. I think this is potatoes, garlic, and over there it's that's all onions, because deer won't eat the onions, right? I've noticed the odd tip will be bitten off one of these, but whatever tastes that tip doesn't come back for any more. At least not in my experience. Based on some reading I've done, this is what the consensus is, that garlic and onions are safe from the deer. So I put onions over here. Last year these two beds had potatoes, and that one there in particular is a hugelkultur bed. So it's all onions, full of onions. You can't see them because there's a mulch, and I just planted them a few days ago. Lots of onions. But anyway, at the end I got some more pumpkin, and they'll be trained that way. I don't even care if they go up the fence. That'd be cool actually. They catch some sun. Because they don't care about this space. That's another thing. You got a bed, but you can actually, things like pumpkins that like to sprawl, you can plan where they go. They don't have to be in your bed, right? You can plant them in a corner or on an edge and have them go out and sort of get more use of your space without having to cultivate. Just makes it easier. Anyway, just some ideas, lots of ideas. All right, so there you have it. The name of the game is cheating, right? Convince the soil, it's all about soil, that it's somewhere else that's warmer, by covering it with some plastic and creating a little microclimate there that doesn't get too cold at night and keeps the seed happy. And by and large, you should ensure germination by doing that. You still might get the odd cold night, as is evidenced by my tomatoes, which I planted probably a week too early. Just pushed it a little bit, or I lost half of them. But, you know, we'll see with these other things. I think it'll work out, because it's worked out for me in previous years. So I hope that gave you some good ideas. I hope you found that interesting and entertaining and all that good stuff. And if you did, please subscribe, share, like. Check out my podcast, MaritimeGardening.com. And until next time, get out there, get at it, have fun in your garden. Thanks for watching. Right, the soil wants to heat up because there's sun shining on it, but it can't because the ambient air keeps changing. Right, the air that's in contact with the soil keeps changing because the wind keeps blowing it away. By affecting this little microclimate, I sort of trap the air, so the air can get warm there. Hey, it's Greg here with MaritimeGardening.com, and it's a crazy windy day today, but I'm out here planting some peas, and you know, patience is a virtue in gardening, and I consider myself a pretty patient guy, but I'm also an impatient guy. And I don't see anything wrong with you know, being both things at once. You know, I'm perfectly fine waiting for things to happen, but if there's anything I can do to make something happen a little faster, I like to do it. Today I've just planted some peas down here, right down this row. And I'm going to show, I mean, some of the people that have been watching my channel for a while know about this trick, but not everyone does. If you're just planting a row of something, these little plastic things, you just take two pieces of 1x3, you staple on a piece of plastic. I use what they call 6mm poly. You buy it in a garden center, right? I got sticks going down here. I'll bring the camera in and show you at a little bit closer angle, but I got a stick here, stick over there, a string between the two of them, makes like a ridge line. And then I just make a little tent. That's all this is, really. Right? And put this little, I got some rotten wood here just to keep the mulch from blowing away, but I can also sort of use it to my advantage. So that little string keeps the plastic up off the soil. I'm going to create a little microclimate there. So it's going to be, I think it's a high of 14 today with some sun. It's going to be 20 something in there, right? It's going to be better for germination. Let me bring you a little closer and show what I'm doing here. So as you can see, I just got a stick driven into the ground, little notch in there to keep the string in place. And I got it pretty tightly connected between the two things. The one in the middle here has got a little notch to sort of hold the string in place there, right? A little bit higher than the other two sides. And then the string just goes in like this and makes a little tent, right? It's not super strong. It's not ideal for like snow and stuff like that, but it's enough to create a nice little warm, the combination of the dark soil, the sun heating that up through the plastic, and just creating enough little microclimate, right? It's a windy day today, as you can probably tell from the microphone. And all that wind blows the heat away. This soil is collecting energy from the sun and warming up, but all that wind is blowing the heat away, right? The soil wants to heat up because there's sun shining on it, but it can't because the ambient air keeps changing, right? The air that's in contact with the soil keeps changing because the wind keeps blowing it away. By affecting this little microclimate, I sort of trap the air so the air can get warm there, right? The sun can heat the soil, and the air above the soil can get warm, and the peas can get warm, and maybe I can get some germination happening. So that's all there is to it, not too hard. Just a little way to sort of cheat a little bit and get the soil a bit warmer than it would otherwise be. And, you know, the germination, get things going, get things happening. You know, these little, you know, two pieces of wood with some plastic between them, they roll up, they're easy to put away. You can use them in different parts of your garden. Easy to get things germinated. Great little solution. Doesn't take long to do. So I hope you found that interesting. If you did, please like, share, subscribe. Check out my podcast, maritimegardening.com. And until next time, get out there, get at it, have fun in your garden. Thanks for watching. I got some mulch here. I can put a little mulch against the sides to hold the heat in, right, over the cold nights. Right, you can do that. Hey, it's Greg here with maritimegardening.com, and I'm out here in the last light of the day planting some Swiss chard. And today I'm going to plant this giant Ford hook Swiss chard. Ford hook giant, I think is what it's called. So it's an old, you know, popular variety. Big plant, good tasting, nice and green. You know, it's sort of an impressive looking plant, but also just, you know, reliable, constantly producing right into November sort of thing. How do I know it's time to plant Swiss chard? Well, for me, the best indicator is when you start seeing these in your garden. And this is the first dandelion in the garden here. I got some dandelion, actually weed growing right here, but these are still in bud stage, right? And this is a, you know, the plant, the location where this plant is growing is basically like south facing, good light, right up against a big log, you know, sort of an ideal spot, right? So I know that in the best spots on my property, there's dandelions growing. And the spots that have a bit of shade or not in perfect sun, they're still like this. So it's a bit early, right? It's a bit early for planting, to me, Swiss chard. You know, they're a tough plant and they can take a lot of cold, but when they're young and you're trying to get them to germinate and that sort of thing, they like a bit more heat than, you know, like they can handle the frost and all that sort of stuff. But if you want them to start growing good and do well from germination, you know, you want to plant them a little further on in the season, later than things like spinach, lettuce, arugula that are super tough, right? So for me, this is the very edge, the tippity tip of the edge at the beginning of the time when you can start planting these. But I'm going to do a little trick here. All right, so I just prepared a really small area, basically 3 feet by 3 feet. And I'm going to treat these almost like transplants. Swiss chard, really easy to move. You know, some plants hate being moved and it really upsets them, like spinach, for instance. But Swiss chard doesn't mind being moved too much. So I'm just going to plant a small area here. And as you can see off to the side, I got a bit of a dome, a little tiny, you know, 2.5 foot by 2.5 foot sort of domey thing that I'm going to put over this. All right, so just make it a little bit warmer in there and a little bit more favorable for germination and early growth. This is a trick I use for a lot of plants. You can have big ones. You can also have relatively small ones like this. This is fine for anything that can be moved easily, right? So this doesn't work for carrots, for instance. For carrots, if you got an 4x8 garden bed, you better have a 4x8 cover, right? But for something that can be moved like this is fine. All right, so now I know roughly the area I'm dealing with here, how much real estate I have for my planting. I know where the edge of that box is, so I don't want to get too close to that edge, right? You want to have it back, you know, a few inches from that. So I'm going to put a row here. I'm going to put a row about here. I'm going to plant them pretty close together, like an inch apart. It doesn't matter because they're all going to be plucked out of this and moved, right? So I got the rows about a handspan apart, right? And then I'm going to sow the seeds about an inch apart. Right, so or even tighter than that. It doesn't matter, right? And I've good planting depth for Swiss chards, maybe 1/2 inch, give or take. Same thing as beets, right? Another good reason to do it this way is that it's just not overwhelming. I mean, basically, I'm going to have enough beets here to easily fill a 4 foot by 10 foot or 4 foot by 8 foot garden easily, right? Just going to be a lot of beets here to be plucked out and moved. But all I had to do tonight, I was doing other stuff in the garden. I was about to go in, and I just said, how long will that take? 5 minutes? 10 minutes? You know, if I wasn't filming a video, it'd be pretty darn quick to do this, right? I overseed a little bit, doesn't matter. There we go. So I got a good seeding there. I got plenty left over just in case things go wrong. Okay. Now I got a little bit of finely screened soil. You don't have to, you can just move the existing soil back, but I like to have some really, really good dark stuff that I just screen from. You know, certain beds in my garden have better soil than others, so I'll just take a little bit of the soil from those spots and use it for sowing like this. I just feel, I don't know if it's making any difference, but I mean, your confidence goes up. One of the problems people get into when they're trying to get things to germinate and they don't come up immediately, you start doubting, you know, your skills, your situation, the soil, the location. You start thinking all kinds of crazy, you know, things. Instead of just believing and waiting, it's just, you know, sort of just hoping, right? So by doing it this way and patting it down so you got good contact, right? I've got high confidence that this is going to work out. You pat it down so that there's good contact between the soil and the seeds. Then you give the whole thing a really good watering. Don't go too crazy with the water, you know. That is to say, don't pour the water until it is pooling up. If you see it pooling, just take a little break. Let it settle out. Right? Okay, I think that's good. And we're actually pooling. I went a bit crazy there. All right, that's good. This box is a bit awkward to move, but not impossible. Okay, now at this stage, I mean, if I want to, you know, I got some mulch here. I can put a little mulch against the sides to hold the heat in, right, over the cold nights. Right, you can do that. Not absolutely necessary, and it's not perfect, right? So if there is excess heat, it can bleed off. And you notice I have a bit of a dome here, right? Just a really rudimentary. I just bent some bamboo sticks, right? Sort of put a little, you know, gouged a little dent in each side and bent a bamboo stick, just enough to make a little point, right? That way the rain sheds off. I also think by having a dome, as opposed to it just being flat, there's better aerodynamics inside this little microclimate. Because there's a dome, you get a little air movement, turbulence, and that sort of stuff, right? Because the air can gather here. Maybe one spot's warmer than another. You know, there's, I don't want to get into physics or anything like that, but there's something to be said for the dome structure when it comes to air movement. Let's just put it that way, right? So having a little bit of a dome here, maybe I get a little bit better air movement than if it was flat. Okay, and I just find things work better if you can just create even a little dome like this. So I mean, I got the thing here, and this might be 3 inches higher, but this is really easy, really cheap, really simple to slap together. This one's made out of 2x6. That's total overkill. You know, 1x6 or 1x4 would be fine. I would use that 1x6 fencing. You know, it's not even an inch thick really. It's like 7/8 or 5/8. I mean, wood's getting so expensive right now. I made these, I don't know, 5-6 years ago when it was relatively inexpensive. Now the price of wood's gone insane, right? I got a number of beds in my garden I got to repair because they're rotting out, and I can't get over the price of wood. But anyway, don't want to get off topic. These Swiss chard are in. I'm not going to do anything here. Okay, I've watered this, and now I've sort of closed it all in. On a warm day, the water will evaporate, gather at the top, rain back down on it. I got other beds where I planted stuff a couple weeks ago, 2-3 weeks ago. Haven't watered them at all. There's been sunny days, there's been warm days. The stuff's growing, I haven't done a thing, right? This is a great little system for getting seeds germinated and going because it gets warmer than, you know, the air in here is warmer than the ambient air. This time of year, I'm not worried about this sort of system overheating. We just don't get enough heat. It's gonna be like 0 tonight. It was 0 last night, 0 Celsius. I'm not worried about, you know, it might get as warm as 14 degrees Celsius during the day, maybe, right? So I'm not too worried about it. But, you know, that's it. These are all little nuances you have to figure out for where you are. You try things, you experiment. Some seedlings and seeds can handle more heat than others. I've never had a problem with Swiss chard using this approach, where I am anyway. So anyway, I hope you found that interesting. If you did, please like, share, subscribe. Until next time, get out there, get at it, have fun in your garden. Thanks for watching. Hey folks, guess what? I've started a newsletter at maritimegardening.substack.com. I'll be putting out 1 article a week. That's 52 articles a year. The articles expand on ideas that I mention on my videos and podcasts. And every article has a read aloud option, so you can just listen to me read it if you're busy doing something else. You can subscribe for $30 a year or try it for $5 a month and see what you think. It's a great way to help support everything I'm doing here. But hey, there's also free content too. So if you just want to read the free stuff, that's fine too. As always, get out there, get at it, have fun in your garden. Thanks for watching.